All right, so we are at chapter, what was it, 18, 19, something like that. Continuation of Life Mosaics and God of Men. So there were some topics from last week we didn't get into, but then I looked at what we're talking about this week. And again, I only could pick one part of that conversation, which is when Rhamya comes to give advice to Aphraar about how to speak to people on it. So I was like, okay, we're just going to focus on that. And so one point from last week felt relevant because it kind of continues on, which was about to speak like Jesus does. And there's this poem, an explanation. But then what I find, what Aphraar mission seems to be about is that we have this concept about God that is controlled by organized religions or philosophies of some kind. And Aphraar is there to re-teach, I would say, re-explain, reignite the God that Jesus spoke about, and to bring that God back to the planet. To bring two people on a planet, this was the God Jesus was speaking about. And the whole point was about bringing that God back onto the planet so that we even think to seek to have a relationship with that God and not the one that was described by religion. That is what I feel is what the conversation is about, because towards the end of that chapter, there is a sentence that Rhamya says, let your first endeavor in your new mission be to give them back the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, speaking a living gospel through the inspired lips of living man, and calling to a newness of life which will prove its divinity by the fruit. This is the only spiritual authority the world will accept. So it's kind of cool that they're saying the world is rejecting this other God, religion's talking about, or systems or whatever. And that nobody should have any authority on God to begin with. Like that's not even a thing. So that's, I think I'm showing off.
Yeah.
Like, I think I got it. So that's the framework. Yay, I got what it was trying to say. So let's go back to point one of the email, which was, so my icons have changed. So page 179 in the previous chapter, Ailiel advised to Aphraar, as he in your ministry has to be your team, let him also be your model. Speak simply that all may understand you, kindly that all may be drawn to you, patiently that all may feel they have a friend in you. Can you hear the Toy Story song right there?
Yeah.
You have a friend in me. And naturally, that all may find in nature an exposition of your gospel. As far as in you lies, avoid all mysteries, but as the reaping is always governed by the sowing, so let it be known that the counterpart and consequence of all action must eventually be found. Okay. What are your thoughts and feelings about that? Virginia?
Basically, what I get from this is that you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
But also how you deliver your message, how you approach everything,
Okay.
in like speaking simply, that we don't want to confuse.
Yeah.
Even though we can be confused by his words, and I mean, it's a century later, but
yeah, right, even that.
Yeah, to not create more mystery, because God really does want us to know, wants to share with us.
Ooh, because we all consider God a mystery and we should accept it. Like, oh, well, God is mystery and it's all mysterious and oh, well.
I've been told that many times. Oh, well, that's not, if they don't know the answer, someone doesn't know the answer, and that it's a mystery, and it's okay to have some mysteries and not know everything. And I
Yeah.
understand that I can't know everything.
Yes.
I'm definitely not there yet, but that to create confusion can also bring something back to you that is not pleasant, because it says that eventually, like, and consequence of all actions must eventually be found.
Yes. Okay. So, but I like what you said there. God doesn't want to be a mystery. God wants to be discovered. God wants to have
Mm-hmm.
a present relationship with us. So that's really cool. I'm still stuck on that sentence going, that's really good. So, okay. Okay, Selena. Oh, did you have more to say, Virginia? Oh, you mute.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of felt that a little differently. To me, I felt like he's talking about truth and making sure that you speak truth without arrogance, and truth that isn't mysterious to you, like it isn't something you're just repeating, it's something you know about. So it's not mystery, it's
Okay.
your experience. I kind of felt it a little differently,
Yeah.
if you know truth in yourself,
Yes.
and that the counterpart and consequence of all actions must eventually be found. So that to me speaks to your experience will teach you
Yes.
the truth, and then that way you'll be able to deliver the truth without arrogance, without just repeating things that you think are true.
Yeah. Okay.
And naturally, so naturally that means naturally that they'll find a natural exposition in your gospel. So you're speaking truth, and it's natural to you because it's part of you.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense too. I
So
don't
that
know.
makes
I feel
it
like you're both right.
simple. So then it's simple and it's kind, because if you're doing it from a place of loving truth,
Yeah.
that you've learned yourself, and it's internalized in your soul, then all of those things are automatically. So if you're not following that, you know that you're speaking out of arrogance, not out of
Humility.
even if it's truthful, you're speaking out of truth that you think is truth, or that you heard was truth, or that you
Right.
intellectually understand is truth. That's kind of what I got out of it.
I like that too. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's kind of like an addition to, it's not an either or, it's like both.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Thank you. Huh. What about you, Jill? Anything about that jumps out to you?
I was kind of on the same page as Virginia, that but what Selena is saying makes kind of a little bit more sense. Like what you say is needs to be out of truth, but with void of that arrogance and that coming from that place of humility. Because one of the sentences that stood out for me in these chapters is that man is not meant to know everything.
Yeah, right.
God knows everything. Man is not meant to know everything. And but to have that desire to know everything that God knows.
Yes.
Even though we may not have the ability to know, or the ability might be the wrong word, but have the ability to know what God knows. We can desire that.
Yes.
To have that full understanding, only God can know that. And kind of approach everything from that standpoint. So that automatically, if you come from a standpoint of, hey, listen, I don't know everything, you're automatically coming from a standpoint of humility.
Yeah.
And
but then to stay mindful that I can only speak of what I know.
Yeah.
Processing, I'm going through it. Or to be honest and say, here's what I've learned. I haven't figured it out myself yet.
Yeah.
Would be, you do want to share some things that you're going, if say it's about reincarnation, you can say, I've learned that there's no such thing. I haven't figured it out for myself. So at least you've given the truth going, it's probably, I've learned that there's such a thing as there's no reincarnation, but I haven't figured it out for myself. I'm still working it out. So you're still giving the truth, but also being honest that you haven't figured it out for yourself. Instead
Right.
of not saying anything, going, well, I don't know if it's true or not, so I don't even say anything, then you haven't even introduced the concept for somebody to then start examining and questioning.
Right.
So I guess somewhere in there is a balance of it.
Okay.
But I like the speak simply. It's like, I think Jesus said in one of the talks, truth should be something that a 4-year-old can understand.
Mhm.
It should be kept that way. And that's kind of cool. I used to read a lot of I used to read Gurdjieff. I used to read really complicated natural love kind of philosophies. And they were very complicated. And I'm just turned off. I just, for some reason, the older I get, the more I'm just like, I'm not interested. It's got to be able to. So, yeah. Okay. So do you feel like we can move on to the next thing? I guess because we all have some kind of probably addiction or demands that spiritual people have knowledge of this complex, mysterious stuff. And so if you're speaking simply, you're not really going to impress anybody about the quality of your truth. Could be one of those things that okay, so point 2, page 186. Now let this be my first word of counsel to you in relation to your forthcoming mission. Whenever you're consulted as to any thought, action, or opinion, be careful before replying to place yourself as far as possible on the same ground in relation to the question as Christ himself occupied. And where you have no clear statement of his to guide you, be sure your interpretation of the general law he has laid down is natural, consistent, and reasonably clear. So what is he even saying? How has Aphraar demonstrated this in his channeling? Because this is him receiving okay, you're going to be channeling truth to people on earth. Here's your guidelines. And so we're now reading the result of his exercising those guidelines. So can we see how he did that? And if we were to be doing stuff like that ourselves, where we're trying to share truth as we know it, but I mean, I am not ever, anything that I'm like, well, this is what Jesus have said. I'm trying to share my exploration of it, but I do not ever want to be thinking that I'm speaking on behalf of divine truth. Is oh, no way. And I have a lot of unworthiness feeling, it's sort of painful. It just comes out. So makes me nervous. It's actually made me go, I should not be teaching anything. That's why I just go into a dark place. So where are you guys at with that? Virginia?
Well, Aphraar really has channeled and he's speaking from his own experience.
Right. Yes. Okay.
And as far as speaking it simply, I'm sure in their time this language was speaking simply.
Yes.
But I feel that that part is so important because when you speak simply, it allows that space so that you can have the emotional understanding, not just have your go into your head. Because if you go into your head to try to figure it out, because you're not getting it, then it never gets down to the part where you're actually really understanding it. Because that's what I find. If I feel like I have to try to intellectually decipher what's being said, I can't emotionally grasp it either. I can't go there.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. If you speak simply, it gives room for you to be able to have an emotional reaction to it. Okay, you're on today, Virginia. That's really good.
Well, that's the way it works for me. So I'm just saying, sometimes these paragraphs, I read them I don't get it. So I can't even really go there and fully understand it. And that's why I'm here. So I can hear everybody else out because I didn't understand a lot of it. And I only got little bits. And I know there's so much more truth in this book, these books that will be useful. So I want to understand more.
Okay. Jill?
I think Virginia said it. Yeah, I mean, it's that not understanding is a big part, and kind of brings up that, well, I'm not smart enough to understand
Yeah.
this. I don't, I don't have the language capacity. I don't, all of that that it brings up.
Yeah.
And I think the couple things that kind of ran through my mind when you were talking, Virginia, was, and when you were talking, Mila, that, how could you actually go out into the world
Yeah.
and speak the truth
Yeah.
at any point in time,
Yeah.
and but understand it, like how, like, if we
Yeah.
don't understand it, then how can we speak the truth? And I get faced with this all the time, where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I need to say something in this situation, or somebody is there's something going on here that I need to speak about, but I don't know how to actually speak about it, because I don't know the truth, or I don't know if I'm going to be stepping on um the addiction part of it, or what,
Yeah.
all of it, like, in it. And
Yeah.
that kind of, what that brought up for me was that it's like, well, okay, how can I do one without the other, and where can I get the other? And I think that's kind of where Aphraar went when he was talking to Eileen, that he was like, okay, well, tell me, what am I missing? And she's like, well, I can't, but I know somebody that can.
Yes.
And that
So
kind of,
beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
that interaction was
Yeah.
something special. That was, yeah. But that's kind of how I felt. Like, it's like, okay, well, I can't give it to you, but I know somebody that can, so just go talk to them.
Yeah.
Right.
But she did engage him in helping him process. It's just that she said, I'm not gifted. You'll know yourself well enough to go, my gift is not in helping you channel to other people.
Right.
Somebody else. But then she helped him profoundly in how to engage God.
Yeah.
What is that relationship with God about? Which is what Aphraar message is about, which is we are supposed to have a different relationship with God.
And I think that's it, but isn't that Eileen's gift, is that helping other people have that relationship with God?
Yeah.
That would be her, gift. Okay.
It's like she did do part 1 of 2, kind of like, well, it's about how to engage God. But then part 2 is, but how do you channel that information? How do you teach that? How do you convey the message? She's like, well, I'm going to get somebody else. So
yeah,
it's good to know so well about yourself to go, okay, that's not my part. And then to then be okay, like, yeah, well, I'm not there. I may never be there. I'm not there yet, or that's just not my thing. It's so freeing to just go, well, somebody else has it. We could just call somebody else to help.
Yeah. Was it last week we were talking about that everybody has one specific job. Like it's yeah, they're that one specific uniqueness, and that goes to, and I think that interaction between Aphraar and Eileen was that example of that her gift is this is her nice little ball of gift. And Aphraar kind of tried to push her outside of that gift, and she's like, no, that's not me, I'll bring something else in.
Yeah. But then when you're still developing, so Aphraar is still developing, so he's engaging the question, even though he hasn't fully gone in there yet. He's engaging it is part of the process of getting there, just as it is with Eileen. That, when she has to explain, it's like when Rhamya said that I get to receive by giving you a gift. And I'm like, how do you live like that? That is the coolest line ever. So what they're saying here is that in Aphraar giving us the gift, he received the gift. So if you're waiting till you're perfect, you're not going to develop. But in wanting to, so for you, Jill, to go, well, I got to say something here, and I'm going to have to figure this out, and I'm going to give the gift of truth or how I'm exploring it. And so in the process of engaging all of that, you will be receiving the gift of, I guess, learning how to. Aphraar wanted to give a message, so he had to receive all his gifts in order to give the gift. So he ended up benefiting.
That's pretty cool to think of it that way. Like to think that, okay, well, I'm going to give this gift of truth, and I'm going to get a bunch of gifts in return for that, right? Not that that's why you should do it,
No.
but that's that exchange
Yeah.
is an encouragement to tell the truth.
It's such a beautiful feedback system God has created, where you're going, well, giving gift is going to be so wonderful. You're going to be gifted for giving a gift. It's like, that's a pretty cool system. It's like, makes sense that God will create that kind of a world. And also, I think if you're speaking to others, if you're sharing, this is how I feel, it's probably a good way to go, I feel this. And you're just being emotionally honest. And then, unfortunately or fortunately, when you do that, your addictions can be exposed. It's just that we judge ourselves for having the addiction that we have not yet cleared, because it takes time to clear them. You got to discover them. You got to be okay you have them. You got to start breaking them down. Like, it's just another day of life. So that, I think, is there, but we get prickly about like, oh, I was engaging addiction. And I'm like, I already am engaging addiction. The only choice I have is to have it exposed. I can't help that part at this point. But then, I still get very prickly about being exposed and having stuff pointed out to me. I take it personally because I think it's my worth. My worth is based on not having faults or something. So it'll help you to expose that discomfort. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Selena.
Kind of on that note, sometimes I find, well, particularly if you're on there, other divine truth people respond, they can kind of, it kind of goes the other way too, where the response is not, I just once said, an Indian lady that I've been really having trouble connecting to, and she didn't speak English, whatever, and she kind of reached out her hand, and for Indian women, they give food.
Yes.
And she made me a really nice cup of chai. Of course, she doesn't know I'm vegan, and I drink it. Like, how am I going to explain to her I'm vegan? I drink it. Like, I'm not going to offend her.
Right.
And I was just put that as a question, what do you guys do when this happens? Like, what's more loving, to just drink the milk in the chai, or refuse it and make a big deal? And everybody, your responses from the divine truth were, oh, I would have thrown up. Like, I don't even think I could have had milk, and it would have just made me sick. And that wasn't the question.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a learning in itself.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes it goes the other way. You try to offer or find out some truth.
Yeah.
Or I just thought it was an interesting question.
Yeah.
And it kind of, oh, I won't do that again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we get in this place of, what is the loving thing to do? What is the right thing to do? But I'm not feeling it. So then I'm just intellectually guessing it. So then I'm just walking around a loop.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes people they don't really answer what you're looking for anyway. They just kind of put their own stuff on there.
Is it intellectual? What's loving? What's not loving?
Yeah. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. So point 3, page 187, Jesus Christ's position towards authority. In all things temporal, submit to temporal authority. In all things spiritual, to God alone. It allows no shred of divine authority to any purely human foundation. No, how do you say this word? Ecclesiastical? I was going to Google it, but okay, one of those words. A religious corporation exists as a Christian institution. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Then there's the other one about Jesus that will not rail against the services. You never in undue haste to destroy the evil, lest he might also bring the good associated with it to naught. Page 188, its highest conception, human's highest conception of God is bounded by limitation of our own five senses, and never rises beyond the magnified proportion of a man with a moral nature, leaving much to be desired. For this reason, if no other, it would be impossible for God to submit himself to the authority of any foundation of men. All this God in Christ foreknew and wisely ordained, that none authority of any human institution in spiritual matters. So it's like very, very clear that humans has no authority whatsoever on anything about God and cannot represent God and the laws. But then, you know, religions are not perfect. So there's kind of like this feeling of religions may have mixed up messages, but then if you're doing some good, then don't go destroy the whole thing, just because then you'll also lose a little bit of the good that is also mixed in with the error. It's like when I look at the Sikh religion I was born into, it believes in reincarnation, but then it also offers equality and free food to all under one roof. So you're going, okay, you know, like it's kind of like, I guess you pick and choose, or what are your feelings about it? That when it comes to God, no human has any authority, but then religious practices, some are good, some are not. Jill?
I think it goes back to that statement that Ailil made with the prism and the colors.
Right.
And that, you know, if God shone his light through a prism,
Yeah.
and all these colors came out and it landed on all these different religions, there's a part of each of those religions that is in line with truth and
It's
with
an
God.
inspiration, right? Because
It's an inspiration. But not one solely is better than the other, or not one solely is
Ooh, I like that.
is the overarching or the representation of God, because
Yes.
God can't be represented by a building that man made, or you know, a constraint of the words that man made, or anything like that. It has to be that spiritual aspect, but each religion does have an aspect of a God aspect to it. Right.
Okay. I really like that. Thank you. But that, according to these statements, Jesus has basically said no human foundation of any kind can represent God, period. Like it's like a non-concept. I guess because it's leaning towards a personal relationship to God. And so there's nobody else out there that should be dictating it or defining it, or I'm trying to figure out that like this very clear authority given about this issue. Jill, was it?
I was just going to add to that too, that each religion that as it stands right now, they worship a different God. Like it's not like every religion that's out there that has their own God that they worship. Yeah. So that's the part that I think, I don't know, that I got that they were referring to, that it's like, okay, in that frame, no, it's wrong. It's one God. It's there's no religion out there that expresses that one God. So,
but they all say they are.
Yeah, they're just they're all kind of different. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of like their their gurus or whatever. Like,
right.
I how else to explain that? But yeah.
Okay, thank you, Virginia.
I can only speak for the Catholic religion because that's what I was raised in, but the church conveys that if you want to get to God and want to know God, you know him through the church and through the Bible. It doesn't encourage you to seek God yourself, get to know God yourself, get to know God's traits and characteristics, and to really get to know God yourself. And
Yeah.
and have your own perception of God.
Yeah.
That this is it.
Right.
This is God. We're the experts on it. So
Yeah.
come hear about it. Come join in.
And what Aphraar is saying is, from what he's learned, it's absolutely like non-negotiable that no human entity can say they represent God's ideas or values or teachings. Okay. Huh. Right. I mean, we're all basically the converted crowd. It's like, yeah, we know. But I can still feel inside of me, it's as if some kind of a layer is finally being peeled back. It's like religion was never supposed to represent God. Like it was never supposed to be. But then what we are doing here, what Mary and Jesus are doing, they're saying you need to have a personal relationship with God. That's what God wants with you. That is what it is supposed to be. That is supposed to be the thing to do for everyone. And I feel like some kind of wheels are turning in my head going, it's not just something that a few of us discover on our side because of our own personal passion. No, this is the normal. It's supposed to be the normal. And what we've learned was never sanctioned. So there's some weird, like somehow I feel like there's more emotional process to go through around it. Yeah, okay. Any other thoughts on this? Okay, why do you feel Jesus feels this way? That religion claiming authority is a big no-no. Religion claiming spiritual authority is absolutely no. Why do you feel Jesus feels this way? Jill.
Maybe I'm gonna guess here that maybe it's because that from what I know of different religions, like from Christianity and Judaism, that the only people that can actually have a relationship with God is your rabbis and ministers and priests and that type of thing. That's it. If you claim that you have a relationship with God, then it's like blasphemy. It's
Wow.
right. So
wow, okay.
it's
Wow, that's
you
very
can't,
empowering. Okay.
yeah, like it and you have to rely on these other people to be able to get the word of God through them.
Ow. Okay. Yeah, I'm having an emotional reaction right now. Okay. Wow. Okay. That is pretty. Yeah, the one thing that wow, I'm having some emotions here. Selena?
It's funny. My thought with that is the harm that it does. Is
Yeah.
One of the things that, having grown up Mennonite and then married into a Catholic family, things like, of course, I wasn't interested in baptizing my daughter when she was born, and my husband wasn't religious. He didn't care.
Right.
But that was a real problem for my mother-in-law.
Okay.
And because of this belief that if a baby isn't baptized by a priest in the church, that like they go to hell.
Yeah, they die.
How hard was that? Imagine that. Imagine not having the opportunity to baptize your child for whatever reason, and believing that they went to hell because of it, because without that sanction of a priest basically giving the child permission to go to heaven and be with God.
Wow.
So that's a priest taking authority over God, really.
That's true.
I mean, that's horrible.
That is true. Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
that feels horrible.
Yeah, and it discourages one of the most fundamental. No wonder we're all like, it's so much hard work now to try to reestablish a relationship with the God that wants to, that desires to have a relationship with us. And we need to have somebody come back 2,000 years later and going, look, you're supposed to have a relationship with God. This is how you do it. And I really like how Jesus will say, ask God about it, talk to God about it. What are God's feelings about it? And that was one of the light bulbs that went on in the first assistance group I attended, was when when Jesus said, or maybe Jesus was channeling, that you can ask for God's feelings on anything, on any issue. And I just like felt like the world stopped. And I go, did you say what? So I've been doing that ever since. Whenever I'm not in a tantrum, like, what's God's feeling about this and that, and this and that, and this and that? It's so wonderful. Not that I'm getting an answer, but the desire is developing the pathways. And like, imagine every 2-year-old learning that on the planet. You can ask for God's feelings about anything. Let's ask God about it. Let's see what we get. Wow. Like, yeah. And just, yeah. That is supposed to be the normal. That's okay. Yeah, we're in trouble. Okay. So now we get to fun stuff. Page 188. I'm ever willing to admit that the origin of most religious system is to be found in inspiration of a certain kind, but the admission does not affect the conclusion. Inspiration, then, is rather a river following humanity, an evolution with a succession of revelation after revelation, a heritage to be entered into as humanity is able to bear the inspiration and emotion. No inspiration is perfect in itself, but each, if rightly apprehended, leads on to something better until the last. And I think they speak about like at one moment with God. No perfect inspiration has ever reached earth through man, nor can it be possible to do so since man himself is imperfect. So we can talk about this before we go to the other 2 points of inspiration. So what are your feelings about that? That there was some kind of inspiration that came to people when they started, which then became a religion. And that inspiration is supposed to be a thing that happens for all of us. And that we grow from inspiration to inspiration. I mean, you can call it intuition. Happens step by step by step, and you evolve and you grow and you evolve and you grow. And that was always the pathway God has made for helping us evolve. Jill.
There we go. Button's not working. Yeah, I found this actually quite enlightening. Like it almost took the pressure off. It's like, okay, I can get inspiration, but it's not gonna be perfect. Okay, you know, it's this is a learning process, and I'm okay with the fact that it's, you know, this is a learning process. And I got mad about it too. I'm like, well, why, if I'm going to ask God a question, why can't I get a right answer?
Okay. Why can't I get it perfectly? Okay.
Why can't I get it perfectly? Yeah. So that a little tantrum happened there. But yeah, I thought it was beautiful because it almost left, it's like, here's inspiration. Okay. But we're going to keep that desire fire burning by not giving it all of it, like not intentionally, but not kind of giving all of it, just so you can keep that inspiration or that desire burning. Yeah. It's like for more. It's like, okay, well, this happened and this happened.
No, but maybe you are receiving the fullest inspiration in your current state of evolution. Yeah. And then we grow and develop by your free will choice. Yeah. 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 Okay.
Because, you know, choices, we're always faced with choices. Like you always have the choice to either do one or the other. Yeah. And if you receive inspiration, then you still have a choice. You either can receive and grow from it and desire more, or you can stop there, or you can think that this is absolute, and that's where you stop.
Absolute. That's the pitfall. I don't think it's an absolute. Yeah. It's an evolution. It's evolving all the time. Yeah, that does take the pressure off. And then when you look at religion and you're going, well, they received an inspiration up to that point of time, which would have continued to evolve. And it's supposed to keep evolving. So we can kind of release this idea of religion received this thing that was a done, finished deal. It's done. No, if they continued on, they will have upgraded the inspiration. Kind of makes it more fluid. Yeah, okay. Other thoughts? Selena?
Well, I don't really understand this.
Okay.
So inspiration is basically inspiration received after receiving divine love, kind of
No,
that kind of get
No.
revelations and inspiration after receiving love. So what does I don't where
no. Inspiration is something that you always. So that was going to be my next thing. Going, what do you think are examples of inspiration you've received that were actually from God? So any inspiration, it doesn't have to be natural love, divine love. No, but that inspiration was always one way in which God was helping us evolve and have a relationship. Not direct
Okay.
relationship, but we were still being assisted.
Yeah, so inspiration, like any inspiration, just as we evolve as humans, like going from the Iron Age to the, from, like developing and learning stuff and inventing stuff and creating stuff and making our lives better and easier is all part of God's desire for us.
Well, yeah.
To have those inspirations too, even if they're not perfect in their manifestation.
Well, this is when like if you remember when we were reading about Dandy's passing, like I think would that be considered inspiration when the medical student received this feeling of I need to go to the front and look around because he had money for Bully Peg, and it's like, does that count as inspiration? That's what he was receiving? Like I need to go, or is it like for me? There was a certain time where my life kept not working out for me, and I kept hearing the word "go back to school." Go back to school. Another 3 months of misery. Go back to school, and I'm like, does that count as inspiration? Like, like this is where I'm going, oh, what is inspiration? How much are we receiving it? Like, are we in more contact with God than we realize? How cool is that? But, worthiness will make us go, whoa, was that God? I'm not talking. So it is a beautiful question to go, what is inspiration? What are the examples?
Yeah, and the context that they're using it in.
Yes.
Like, are they using it the way I understand it, or are they using it in the way they understand it in the time that they wrote it?
Yeah.
Like, what are they talking about here? I don't really.
I know.
I just don't understand it. Really.
But that's the beauty. To me, this is where I live in this place where I'm going, what is inspiration? How do we discover? How do we set up experiment? How can I talk to God about inspiration? Give me examples. Like I can see an intuition workshop coming out of this one. Like, let's do a workshop.
Yeah.
Let's explore this word. Go ahead, Virginia.
I really like this. At first, I didn't quite understand it, and I couldn't think of anything as to like, how did you receive this information? And I think, I did get inspiration to look outside of my day-to-day job that I was doing to have a paycheck.
Right.
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 And then I look back, and once I've learned something, or whether all these different things taking me to finally hearing about divine truth.
Yeah.
You and I think, I wish I'd heard about these. That I've been doing these things when I was in my 20s, but then I look back and I think, I wasn't ready to. I wouldn't have understood it, and I wouldn't have accepted it. I probably would have rejected it.
Yeah.
And these other inspirations that I've had to go and learn about something new or get some new training, or it came at the right time. And you get a little bit at a time, because there's other things you need to learn before you can fully accept something else. So then I look at this and I think, geez, I wonder what else is there for me. Like, what's next? What else is coming? Like, that I don't understand yet.
Yeah.
I haven't grasped.
And you have to be prepared. Like I said before, it took about 15 years of once I heard the little voice saying, go teach intuition. And I'm like, what? Sure. What is it? I don't know what it is. No answer. So I had to figure it out so I could teach it. Every time I get set up in like, go teach this. Well, I don't know what it is. Well, yeah, go teach it. So, okay. As I taught it, it's like give the gift and receive it. Probably what that means. But through teaching intuition, I started to receive some divine truth principles. So I was being prepared slowly. So that by the time I found it, I was prepared. So there is this beautiful preparation going on all the time. But then it's about you choosing too. Like it's about you being able to cope and yeah. There's a lot that goes on in the background, right? There's a lot of care being put step by step by step. While we pout and crave and scream like nobody knows, nobody cares, I'm all alone. Yeah. Which we have to do to process the emotion. Yeah, but there's a room for excitement of like, oh, inspiration is how God is talking to us. So, how can I engage this more? But then you got to first freak out going, wait, that was God talking to me? Whoa, how do I feel about that? So we have to process our emotions about that. Okay, so we continue on with that. Yeah, so okay. God has from the first chosen that the stream of inspiration ever flowing in broadening, deepening, and increasing capacity of service to humanity shall be his channel of communication with the evolving soul of man. But the recognition of this arrangement would be destructive of any hierarchical pretensions, like the pretension. You're just pretending. There's no hierarchy here. And for that reason, there've always been a deadly feud waged against the prophet by priest. So this is the channel of communication to help us evolve. But the recognition of the arrangement will be destructive. So there's this deliberate suppression of not letting us recognize this form of communication. And then if we move on, it seems that God has designed inspiration to be the mean through which God directly engage and help in our development. Over time, the channel becomes stronger depending on our ability to stay open to the messages and the changes. If you're not willing to change, then you're probably going to stop it. However, no religion that I know of have spoken of this connection or the need to develop the relationship. Okay, how do you feel about that? I mean, this Rhamya guy, he's he knows what he is pretty outspoken. It's not negotiating with this one. I mean, I think you can't negotiate with truth, but there's something about his language, right? You know exactly how it feels. What are your feelings about that? Inspiration is always supposed to have been the channel, but we deliberately not being told to recognize it. Virginia?
This kind of bothers me.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
How?
that, I mean, as a child, when you're raised with this and you hear it, you think it's truth, and it takes so long to unravel.
Yeah.
To unravel it and get beyond it. And some live through their whole entire lives being just devout to these beliefs. And it's just so misguided.
Yeah.
And I look at it and I think, wow, it's so ingrained that how would you even begin to change this?
Yeah. And the fruit that you're going to reap if you take on the job of disconnecting people from this inspiration, of deliberately making sure people do not know about inspiration. So you don't even think to ask, right? Because it's a free will thing.
Would they know themselves?
Exactly. Well, they're supposed to read a book now. So the priests are also discouraged from actually having inspiration from God. Unless you're in that part of religious expression in your role when it's about serving others. I can only imagine that then somehow the Spirit's going to come through and give you ideas and suggestions and help. And, you know, sometimes you look at somebody, you just have this feeling of like, I think I should go talk to somebody, or I should go see, okay, today I was coming to work, I took the bus. And at the bus stop, there was a man that was hunched over. So basically his head was in between his knees and he wasn't moving. And I work in downtown East Side. It's kind of a common sight, unfortunately. But for some reason, I walked and I stopped and I looked back and I go, something doesn't feel right. And a lot of other people just kept walking by. But I go, and I'm walking on going, well, I don't know, am I going to earn a penalty? You know, like you're thinking about what's the loving thing to do. But at some point I just go, something nudged me that something just wasn't right. I'm just going to go with the nudge. I'm not even going to think about this. And so I called ambulance, and shockingly they were there within 2 minutes. It was kind of like, whoa, you're here already. And by then I could see he was twitching. I could see his chest moving. I'm like, okay, he's breathing. He's unconscious, but he's breathing. He's, you know, he's here. So then I'm going, but I was guided to call to get him help. So even if I'd stick around and observed intellectually, I would have said, oh, he's fine, he's just sleeping off his drug. But something told me call. So I'm just followed the inspiration. Even though even as a doctor, I would have said, oh, he was just sleeping off something. But I don't know, there was a little nudge going, call for help for him. So I don't know what the big picture is. You just go with the inspiration. So I'm kind of going, I think that's what inspiration looks like. You felt a little nudge to do something and you just go ahead with it. And I don't know what came out of it. I mean, he was already waking up when the fireman showed up and started asking, are you okay? Are you okay? He was kind of beginning to wake up and looked woozy. But even then I'm going, is something bigger going on here? So I'm just going to go with it. Yeah, so that's, I guess, it's an example of inspiration. Doesn't make sense at the time, but you just go with it and see what happened. So I can only imagine, even if you are in priest, if you're in the church, but if you are wanting to serve, then somehow you're going to receive inspiration to help in a certain way, versus if you're intellectually oriented and you think you can only do what the book says, so because the guidelines are done. But yeah, there's some sadness about, we were deliberately taught not to seek inspiration and not to even know that inspiration is God's way of communicating with us. So we all probably have a much closer relationship to God than we think. That'll be a plot change. Other thoughts you have about this? Jeff?
To think that's comforting.
Okay.
You know, but I mean, I look back at, you know, my life and how things have evolved
Okay.
in my
Okay.
life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can pick out probably certain instances where I've tried to kind of cut myself off completely from all notions of spirit or God or
Right.
inspiration or anything like that. I've, you know, to have that full cut off. And I've always been nudged. Nope, come on, just a little bit back further. Or something will happen and it'll make me think about it.
Okay.
And then I'll kind of go back into my, nope, everything's fine. I'll be here behind this nice brick wall that's cemented and everything. And then I'll get nudged back out. And yeah, so
Okay.
I think, you know, and then being a little bit more open to it.
Yeah.
Like bigger nudges kind of happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can look back and say that, yeah, those nudges definitely happened.
Yeah.
But where they all seem disconnected right at the moment. You know,
Yes. We have
like how do I get from being, you know, working in oil and gas,
yes.
going into fashion,
Yes.
being homeless for a little bit of time, and then going into nature and into plants, and like, how is this all connected? Where am I going with all of this? So yeah,
I think part of our journey as we move towards that one man is we will be looking back and seeing how it was all, because in book 3 That's basically, if I remember, it's what Aphraar was doing. He was being shown how it all connected.
Yeah.
And Aileel says a lot that she looks back and she can see it, but looking forward, you can't. So, but there is something to, I think, is reflecting on that is something that would be part of the process for you to talk to your guides, Jill, and go, so how did I get from here to here? Was it a straight line? Yeah, that could be. Part of the reason why I'm even doing this book discussion is because I wanted to know why I felt the nudge. I received a nudge and a strong inspiration to do it. And I go, I can give you 20 reasons why I shouldn't. I can't even read the book. Like, what are you talking about? But why do you want me to do the book? So I'm doing it because I want to know why I felt the nudge. I'm exploring the inspiration. I received the inspiration and I go, why? So I'm doing it in order to be able to look back and go, oh, that's why. So you can get to the point where you want to explore the reason for the inspiration. You want to explore, why did my guides so strongly recommend that I teach this group when I have every reason not to, not even teach? The only thing I was willing to explore was, why is this book so difficult for me? That was the only thing I was willing to do, which was being truthful about it. Someday I'll look back and see it all so clearly. But so, you know what? Maybe that's a fun thing to do this coming week. Inspiration. Explore and reflect on inspiration, going, so have I been talking to my parent all along? Has it always been there? And what does that even mean? For Selena, you can even go, can you show me examples of inspiration you have given me in the past? Like, I don't even know what that feels like. What does that even look like? Maybe we can even explore how to deepen the inspiration, how to have more, how to be even more open to it. What does that even look like? I really want to do a workshop on this one. Okay, so the fifth point, which I find is the best point of it all, is Rhamya saying to Aphraar, let your first endeavor in your new mission be to give them back the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, speaking a living gospel through the inspired lips of living men, and calling to a newness of life, which shall prove its divinity by the fruit it bears. So your first mission is to give the earth back God. How do you feel about that? And if you read the paragraph in the book, it says that basically in the chapter, it says, the God of Christ is the God the world is waiting for. And people are turned off from the God of the religion, and that people are waiting, people are looking to connect to this information again. So this is the only spiritual authority the world will accept, radiating power and glory of God, and so safeguard it that the gates of error shall not prevail against it. What are your feelings about that statement?
Yeah, this one really kind of weighed heavy on me. It's like, what, I'm supposed to give the word of God, or is it just Aphraar that's supposed to give the word?
Aphraar. This is what Aphraar receives the information. Yeah, the information Aphraar receive, that to channel, if Aphraar wants to channel the earth, that let that be his mission, to bring back, to return to earth, the God and Father, the God that Jesus is referring to, that Jesus found, or that Jesus called God. Bring that God back to God.
Yeah, I don't feel so heavy now. I thought that was like each of our mission. Like it was like, everybody on this planet is supposed to be.
Right, no.
Yeah.
But that was the offer I was given. So how do you feel about the fact that what the celestial spirits are doing right now, is to return to the earth the God that Jesus was referring to. Bring that God back into our lives. How do you feel about that?
Part of me is like, okay, like, let's do this. Absolutely, let's do this.
Okay.
And the other part of me is like, you don't have a hope in hell. Sorry, but the earth is too far gone, and no one's going to accept it.
Well,
That's
you
kind
are.
of,
You're one person.
yeah,
You represent. So that
that's
matters.
different. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where, and maybe that's kind of my own personal spirit influence is when I get that pushback of,
Yeah.
you know, when I, try and read, it could be my own personal spirit pushback of not to be involved in this.
Right.
But yeah, I am excited about it. I think that it would be, I think the world really needs it.
Yeah.
And I do feel that there is, at some level, there is a hunger and desire for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Others? Virginia?
I agree with what Joe was saying, and that there is more of a desire now, I think,
Okay.
for something else, because people are turning away from religion.
Yeah.
Right. But when I hear that, it seems overwhelming.
Oh,
It just, it's like an overwhelming mission.
for Aphraar to take on.
Yeah, it seems overwhelming to create this change.
Yeah. Okay.
Is how you get that feeling. Wow, that's a big job.
Okay.
You know, it's going to take a while to get this done. But it's a good way to, I mean, these books were written like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's possible, of course, and people will continue to push forward with it because we believe in it.
Yeah.
I have sort of a feeling that we all need to assist a little bit somehow in it. So that's the overwhelming part, because it's too much for one person to do.
But he did 3 books. He did it.
He did.
He found, like, and you can see, you're reading his process of figuring out, okay, I'm overwhelmed. Wait a minute. Did I say I was going to do what? Let me think about this. I'm just giving my own twist about it. But you're reading about him going, wait a minute, can you help me? What's your advice? Who can wait? What? How? So he's going through the process of the doubts and the uncertainty, and we're seeing how the guides then came through and assisted him every step of the way. And that through this chapter, he's going, I'm beginning to feel more confident. I am beginning to feel more confident. So basically, every step of the way, there are choices. Am I going to keep going? Am I going to go, yeah, I don't think so. But he kept pushing through. But those were choices made. Yeah. So it is a big job. But every step of the way, he was guided with absolute accurate insight. And ends up that we end up having a set of books that are like finally the best thing that is out there. And it stood the test of time, because there are all kind of funky mystical books out there, but this set of books stood the test of time. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you have a strong desire, my desire currently is healthcare. Healthcare, God's way. What would that look like? I'm just passionate and fixated and letting my OCD nature just come out there and just work it out. And it may or may not ever get written down. It may or may not become anything, but that's my thing. So I think you just pick your thing and then you just keep taking steps. Yeah. We all have something. What are you afraid would be your thing, Virginia?
Funny. I was I've had inspirations to
Okay.
because as I grew older and as an adult, I more rejected the church. But for quite a while, I didn't feel like I had anything else. I didn't
Yeah.
have anything to replace it, so I was kind of
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
And so yoga did help me with that. And then Reiki energy healing, which is something, I mean, if you told me in my 20s, I'm like, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
And now this year, I just really have this passion to help people with their own self-care and what that is.
Okay. See, you got your thing. It's a big topic, but you
Yeah.
usually exploring it to think about, to stop and go, whoa, how big
Yeah.
is this? How
And
big
I
is
know
this?
there's so much, there's so much out there, but I feel like if I can help people connect with themselves
Yeah.
and see what it is that you really need,
Yeah.
then I'm good. I'm good if I've done that.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
feel good about that can take you into a lot of other things, but I'm good if I can just do that thing.
Yeah. And it's not just a bit. You're teaching people to take responsibility for their own care. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's big. But don't think about it too long. Then you paralyze, going, it's too big. No, just keep going. Thank you. Selena, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Well, currently, I'm just inspired by mediumship. That's kind of it for me right now.
Yeah.
I've had lots of things in the past,
You're learning
and
so much in that.
for
Yeah,
me, that's my thing right now. Yeah.
absolutely. And then how do you feel about the phrase of this is about bringing back to earth the God that Jesus was speaking about?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Through mediumship. Like it's something it's actually something that I really like to talk to people about.
Oh,
Even though so
mediumship.
many people are really uncomfortable. Like I'm not afraid to say
Yeah.
that I do it, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't, so it's something I'm really comfortable with. And
Ah.
I like talking to people about it if they're willing to. Not very many people will though.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I'll put it out there and then it sort of kind of drops like a lead.
Well, the thing,
You know?
though, it is about making God normal again. It's about making God be.
Oh, that's how I see it. Like this is all just part of our normal life and
Yeah.
spirit world, and God's running things, and
Yeah.
it's pretty evident in all, you know. So yeah, it makes God to me way more accessible and way more real to take away the mystery of death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Michael. Hi, Mike. How you been?
I've been here. I've been listening, guys. I wanted you to know that Darn was right. I've been here since the beginning,
Okay.
you know, doing stuff, driving, feeding my parents, and listening and following. And I'm not really prepared. And this is, like you said, this is a deep, complex
Oh.
chapter. So
Yeah.
I just can't show up and say something and sound like I read it. So
Okay.
I'm trying to hide.
but how do you feel about inspiration, that God speaks to us through inspiration? Do you have any feelings about it? I don't want to put you on the spot, just in case.
Well, okay, since you've asked me, because everybody says God does inspiration,
Yeah.
I'll just say that what I've expected, I've either not listened to it or what I've expected hasn't been what's been showing up. So I need to.
Okay.
So I'm sure I've been inspired to the degree
Yeah.
that I'm wish to be,
Yeah.
and so I need to get myself on God's coordinates
Yeah.
rather than keep expecting to make it conform to mine.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all use what would really help is for us to ask our guides, can you give me examples in my life how I have received inspiration from God? Normalize this experience for me. Show me when and how I have received it, whether or not I acted on it. Show me, remind me how that has shown up in my past. Just so we can kind of normalize and kind of go, oh, I already am having a relationship with God. Is one way, but it's already happening. It's probably not that big a deal. It's okay. Maybe that will restore our faith a bit.
I want to just tell a very short story.
Sure.
I think that they're giving me a second chance. I mean, that's a real odd way of looking at it, but like I got an email out of the blue, say half a year ago or 4 months ago, from Scott Koosland, and he said, "Have you felt anything differently?" And he was wondering if maybe AJ had moved up a sphere.
Right.
And I hadn't heard anything. And then a little bit later, somebody else saw my name on one of the videos and wrote to me. He was in Florida. I was in Florida. And he said, "You always, one thing he said stuck with me, you have to start where you are."
Right.
And just a couple, it just felt like there were fresh invitations coming to me to, if I wanted to, I could pick them up and start walking with it. And I think each of those was inspiration.
Yeah.
Trying to, because it lined up with God's truth, that God is always reaching out to me.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. And it's personal, and that you matter, and that God notices you, and God feel that you absolutely want her attention and time and effort and guides, lots of little plans along the way. Yeah. So, I mean, our low word feelings are like a real barrier. It's a real barrier. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Any other thoughts or feelings about this chapter? I just, once I really understand what they were talking about with inspiration, I start to get, wait a minute, start to get really excited. And this is where I go, is this why I'm doing this? This is why I'm, yeah, anyway, every chapter I'm going, is this why I'm doing this book group? So it's been one of the most nerve-wracking experience of 2020, and it's already 2020 to begin with. So yeah, but okay, so go ahead, Michael.
When I think about it, I mean, inspiration is so personal, and it depends upon where we are and how open we are.
Yeah.
And I can understand how the people that formalized a religion, how maybe inspiration was threatening or uncertain to them, and it was much easier to write some rules that people could agree on, and then give guidance, but also, I mean, they think they're doing a service, but also they can control things and they keep their position of power.
Yeah.
So I can see how
tempting that is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, onward to the next chapter. So I'll see you guys next week.